Hello, everybody! It is finally here. It is the week of Halloween. This feels really weird because I'm filming this on October 8th. So it's not the week of Halloween for me, but it will be when this comes out. So I gotta pretend I gotta get the Halloween vibes going. Hang on. I can turn on the echo. Sorry. Welcome back to Robert's Reviews. I'm hoping by now that I will have a little special surprise for you, and I'm hoping that it'll be right here. Hello, everybody. It's Robert. I am calling from the future. I want to give a quick shout out to my boys Cody Buchman and Jake Buchman from the band Searching for Meaning and letting me use their song Casting Shadows as my intro music for the channel. Their music is just simply, in one word, extraordinary, fantastic, amazing, and they're really awesome people. They're some of the best people in the world. And you all should go take a look at that YouTube channel. Link in the description below. And listen to some of their music. Give them a like. Give them a subscription. Do what you got to do. All right, Past Robert, take it away. Okay. Past me was really dumb and called this movie 1992. That's just false. It's 1922. So don't listen to Past me. I edited that out, but I figured I'd put this here. The review coming out right now is for the movie 1922, which you can find on Netflix. Funny that this is not made in 1922. This was made in 2017. And I was going into this very excited. Because it's the first Halloween movie I got to see, like a first horror film, thriller film. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed. The disappointment's probably on my bad for being excited about it. It wasn't a bad movie. It just wasn't, particularly exciting. But we'll get into that after I give you a quick overview. It was written and directed by Zach Hilditch, sorry. And, I mean, essentially what happens in this movie is it's set in 1992, and it is supposed to cover the events of this one man named Wilfred, and what happens to him from the beginning to the end of the year 1922. And what happens is his wife's father dies and leaves her all of this land. And Wilfred is very excited because he loves land. He says that in 1922, land is all that matters. So he's very excited because he's going to be able to keep all 100 acres of his wife's father's land. And his wife's like, hell no, we're going to sell it, and we're going to move to the city. And he's like, the city is for fools. And so he and his son decide that it's better to keep the land. And to avoid her from selling it, they just kill her. That is not a spoiler. That is the general basis of the movie. And then it follows the events afterwards in which things get a little weird for Wilfred and his son Henry as they battle with the guilt of killing her and the ghost that he supposedly sees, which I'll get into a little bit of that later. That is a non-spoiler thing, by the way. Like, they kill her in the first 10 minutes, so it's literally the basis of the movie, without spoilers. I'm going to try to do this without spoilers, because I'm hoping you guys will want to go out and watch these films on Halloween or the week before Halloween, to get you guys into a more of a spooky season feel. And then you can debate with me. You can tell me if I'm wrong or right, or you can give me your thoughts on the movie by going to the Facebook group, which will be in the link in the description, or you can comment on this video and start a thread, and we can talk about it. Whatever you think about the movie. I think I'm going to talk about what I think about the movie before I go into the acting. I was a little disappointed, and the reason I was a little disappointed was because I had heard a lot of great things about this film. The film's been out for a year already. Actually, okay, no, not exactly a year. This movie came out, I believe, on the 20th of October, 2017. I thought this was exactly a year. It's been out for 11 months and like 12 days. Um, and so I just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't great. And I think the reason that it wasn't great was because this isn't a full length novel by King or anything. This is just a novella. And I've read a few novellas and a few short stories from Stephen King. I've read a few very long stories from Stephen King. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I have a lot of Stephen King novels. I used to collect them. I have a lot of them. I didn't bring any to college with me, but I have a lot at home. Um, and I was a little disappointed in this just because it had a lot of potential. It's a cool story. One that I agree should have been made into some kind of media, but I don't know if it should have been a film. I'm wondering if maybe a movie made for television would have been better. But then I'm thinking it's a Netflix movie. They could have made it as long as they wanted to. This movie was an hour and like 45 minutes, give or take a few minutes. And I just think it was just too long. And I know that I say this about a lot of films, but this one in particular, it was long in the way of like the story could be told in 5 minutes, and they dragged it on for a year. LOL. Um, and there were a lot of things that I had issues with. There was a lot of things that I really liked about the film, though, and I want to talk about those first. Things that I liked about the film. The makeup was really, really good about the film. They had a lot of challenges when it came to makeup. There was a lot of blood kind of things that they had to do. There was some really cool, like, facial things that they had to do. Like, a body, don't know whose, like, was eaten by rats a little bit, and they had to show that. And I think it was a physical effect, because I don't think they had any computer generated effects, except maybe this one effect regarding Wilfred's hand. I think there might have been a little bit of a computer generated effect there. But for the most part, I believe it was physical. Which leads me to talk about the blood. There was a scene with quite a bit of blood in it, and it just did not feel real to me at all. It looked very fake. We only got small flashes, which might have been to protect the rating because they didn't want it to be too grossed out. So they didn't want it to be 18 up. It was rated R, I believe. But I feel like they could have made it a lot better. The sounds were kind of weird. Like, they made me feel like, ugh, but not because of the fact that there was so much blood, but because it didn't feel like what blood would sound like when it hit the floor. And I'm sure it wasn't. I mean, I just got done watching The Boys, The Devil All the Time, and they had such good, and The Punisher, they had such good blood use in those media that I feel like they could have done better here. It's Netflix, so their budget couldn't have been too low to have a little bit better gore. Because at the center of the story, I mean, they kill the wife. There's got to be some kind of gore in the film. But when you're basing the story mainly off of that, I mean, it isn't the whole story, because if it was the whole story, that would be a very, very long film if you're just going to kill a wife. But it is centered on that fact that she is dead. Excuse me. And so if you're going to focus on that as your main thing, it should be memorable. I should go to bed tonight and be like, wow, that was gross and awful. Wow, I loved it. Instead, I'm going to be going to bed thinking about what I'm watching tomorrow. And that is disappointing to me. Because I think that Stephen King, his novels and short stories have such potential to be such good movies and television series and all that such. And people just do a bad job interpreting it and putting it on there. That being said, I don't think the problem with this film was interpretation. I think they interpreted it correctly. I think the issue was they wanted it to be a feature-length film, which is far too long. It should have just been a short, like a Halloween special that came out on Halloween or something. And I think they would have had a better luck. That being said, a lot of people like this film. I've heard a lot of great things about this film, and I think that is simply because of the acting. The acting is phenomenal in this, and it keeps you entwined the whole time. Like, for instance, The Devil All the Time, that movie that came out recently. You should watch it and watch my review on it. I seem to plug that one all the time, but it's just so good. It's a good reference. In that film, the characters are so driven by their own thoughts and feelings that it makes you want to watch it. That the plot doesn't even matter. I mean, there is a pretty cool, interesting plot in there, but this one in particular, in 1922, the plot was so meaningless to me that the only thing keeping me going was watching Wilfred, and he does a phenomenal job. The actor does, and we'll get there in a little bit, but. I do want to say the acting was phenomenal in almost all accounts. And I believe that they have a knack for what they're doing, and that is thriller. I don't think this was meant to be a horror movie. It wasn't meant to scare anybody, I don't think. More so that it was just meant to tell a story. That being said, this is probably a much better novel than it is a film. I do read quite a lot. I read quite a lot. I think I've read everything up there. Let me check. Yes, everything up there I have read. Actually, I think we've read all that stuff within the past year. Not embarrassed. And I feel like a short story about this would have been really good because I don't think it's meant to be a long thing. It only takes a span of a year, and not many events can happen in a year. And that's why I think they have a lot of weird things in this story that don't matter at all. Like, the neighbor next door owns a farm, and we get to learn a little bit about that for almost no reason. There's a slight reason why we learn about it. I just don't think we should care about it. I don't think it should matter as much as the director and the writer thinks it is. And that's fine. I mean, and a lot of people did like this film, and I didn't hate it either. I liked it. I'll never watch it again, probably. Just because I think that if I was going to rewatch a film, I would just watch a better horror film, or a better thriller film. But with that being said, let's get into the acting a little bit. Let's talk about it a little bit. I don't want to talk in depth about it too much because it is. I don't want this to be over 20 minutes long because that's just really long for a movie that was pretty long and didn't have a lot of action sequences. And for something that I want you to watch, I mean, I want to be able to have a conversation about it. But for a movie that I think could easily be redone better. But the acting was phenomenal. We have Thomas Jane as Wilfred. Now, Thomas Jane was really, really good in this film. I did no research. I literally finished watching this movie seconds before I started recording. Literally, I had just the time to set up this here microphone and plug it into my computer and do a quick test to make sure the microphone worked, and I was recording. And the reason I bring that up is because the accent that Thomas Jane had was so good. Wow. I don't know if he is Southern. I have no clue. I don't even know for sure where this takes place. My thought was probably like Kansas. And like when you go down south, you got a lot of people that talk like this. This guy talked like this, and it was really cool because it made you feel like he was older, and you made it, I do accents, sometimes for shows and stuff. I'm not particularly good at them. I'm particularly good at a British accent, not necessarily a Southern accent. I'm not very good at them. I've done a lot of them, but I'm not very good at them. But I know a lot about accents. And in the older parts of time, down south, the way that you could recreate that sound is by not moving your lower jaw. Because the thing that is representative of that time period was the straightened out kind of really, really tight vowels. And that's really what you want to get out of them. And then also the S's. There's like a squeaky thing that comes out of your teeth. And they had a lot of that in this film. And I don't know if this guy is Southern. And I don't know if this guy has that accent to begin with. If so, I guess it's not much of a compliment. That being said, if it's not, really well done. Wow. There was never a moment where I didn't believe he was not Southern. I should stop talking about accents now. And talk about his actual performance. And his actual performance is really good. There were some parts where I was a little distracted by the acting. I thought maybe it was a little overdone, particularly when he was supposed to act scared. There is a part in the film, only one part, where he is supposed to be like actually scared. And I feel like we saw a lot of fear in the eyes, which is good. You like to see fear in the eyes. The eyes is the window to the soul. But his body was just completely normal and slack almost, and I feel like you would have been very tense at that part. My back needs to be cracked. I don't know if I necessarily think that is a negative, more so than I think that it is more of a style choice that I would have chosen. But when he wasn't trying to act scared, I think he does a very good job of acting tough. He is a tough guy. He's a tough Southern guy, and he is a very dominant guy. I think he shows dominance over his wife, which obviously nowadays you don't see. Well, I mean, I guess you do see a lot of it, but with me, like, I'm not a tough guy. I'm not gonna like be dominant over my girl. I'm more of a soft person who will basically let anything be done to me. And this guy will not allow that. He does a good job of acting the man in the house. He is the guy in the house. And he does a really, really good job of showing it. And every time he is fierce and tough, it is scary. Which is good because a lot of the tension will come from that. I think that a lot of horror films focus on the scary aspect, like, a ghost or a scary, monster. But movies like 1922 can instill fear in you just by having characters that are strict and are meant to inflict terror in other people. And he does a really good job in that. Neil McDonough played Harlan Cottery. 1715. Neil McDonough. Nonplussed. He is the neighbor that I was talking about earlier, who is the father of Wilfred's son's girlfriend. So that is how that is related. That is the only way that it really matters, except that they kind of work together a little bit. They each own a farm, and Cottery's farm has way more crop production value. So he's richer. He's a richer man. As for the performance, there's not much to the performance in the first place. I will say the accent was not nearly as good. It was still Southern, but it wasn't as good as Jane's, Thomas Jane's. It wasn't the best that I have heard, which is upsetting because I feel like, if you're going to live next door to somebody that has that kind of accent, you're going to have the same accent. But as for performance, there's not much to the character. He maybe got like 2 minutes of screen time, so I'm not concerned with his acting ability, particularly in this moment. Molly Parker played Ariette, who is the wife who gets killed in the first 5 minutes. That being said, slight spoilers. You see her more than the first 5 minutes, but her performance was good because when you're playing a female in that time period, you're supposed to be very submissive, and you're supposed to kind of let that happen. But she didn't let that happen. She was very strict and very almost dominant towards her husband. And I think that it's interesting because that was probably what got her killed. Back in 1922, at that time period, if the guy didn't like what you did, he just left you. And so there was no talking it through. It just happened. They would just leave. And that's pretty much what happened here. He didn't like that she wanted to sell the farm, so he's like, all right, well, then I'm just going to kill you. And then he kills her. But her performance in particular was okay. We don't get to see a lot of it. But you felt for her. You wanted her to want to move to the city because you think it was better for her to move to the city. Um, but at the same time, you're supposed to like Wilfred because he's the quote unquote protagonist, antagonist. He's the main character. He's what you were focusing on. I guess he would be the antagonist, which would make Ariette the protagonist. But at this point, I think we're supposed to like the antagonist because it is a horror movie or a terror film. Brian D'Arcy James as Sheriff Jones. Quick disclaimer: I love Brian D'Arcy James. I love everything he's done. Everything that I've watched with him in it is very, very good. That being said, did not like his performance in this film. He has a bit of screen time. I think he has a fair share of screen time in this film, in a film that is dominated by a family that he is not a part of. He does have a good amount of screen time. And one big issue that I had was he had no accent at all. I mean, it was just him talking normally. Which I feel like, if you're living in the same neighborhood, you wouldn't have that kind of accent. Or maybe he's not from the neighborhood and he just moved there. It wasn't described. So I'm assuming he lives in the same area and he's always lived there. And so that was why it was a little distracting to me that he had no accent whatsoever. But overall, I mean, he was almost monotone the way he delivered his lines, which is really upsetting because I love Brian D'Arcy James. Maybe he was ill when he shot this, or maybe he was told to play it down, but I feel like he could have been more suspicious of the activity that was happening at the time of the film when he was on screen. Not necessarily a negative review, just more of a could have done better. Dylan Schmid as Henry. Now this was really, really good. I liked him a lot. He played Henry, who was Wilfred's son. He did a very, very good job. I think he might have had the second best performance behind Thomas Jane, because he starts out, as a submissive, guy, and then he and his girlfriend do things that I'm not going to tell because spoilers, but it causes him to have to change his character. It is a dramatic shift in his character. And I think that he carried it well, and he was able to stand on screen with Thomas Jane without being overlooked. And that's important. I mean, because that's the issue we have with a lot of actors these days. Like when you put Johnny Depp in a film, I mean, against an unknown, I mean, people are going to watch Johnny Depp way more than the other person. In this case, I don't know any of these actors over Brian D'Arcy James. But Thomas Jane had a very demanding performance, and Dylan Schmid was up to the challenge and was able to play with Jane a little bit there. Caitlin Bernard, who played Shannon. And Shannon was Henry's girlfriend. And we get to see a cool dramatic shift as well, because in the beginning of the film, she's suspicious of the family and what happened to the wife, because she realizes that Henry is acting a little strange. And then something happens, I'm not going to say what again because spoilers, that causes her to have a dramatic change in character. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of that because we focus more on the family, and she's technically not part of the family. So I think it would have been cool if we actually have to see a little bit more of her. I would have been okay with seeing a little bit more of her, and what she could do with the character after the situation occurs. But those are the actors of the film. And with all that being said, I think I've talked for long enough for you to understand why I'm going to give this a B-. The reason that I'm giving this a B- is because I think that overall, the actors did a phenomenal job and the makeup was really good. The rest of the film, though, particularly in the writing department, it was a little slow. In terms of this movie could have been about an hour long, and it could have been more engaging. Because I feel like if I went to go see this in the theater, maybe it would have been better. But I watched this on my laptop at home where you were supposed to see it because it's on Netflix. It was made for Netflix. And I think if you're making something for Netflix, it needs to be more engaging. Because little lesson on media for you. I can stop watching something like that, which is why I have to be engaging, which is why I have to talk this entire time, this entire 25-minute segment you're listening to right now. I have to talk this entire time. I can't just, not talk, because if I'm just going to sit here like that the whole time, you're not going to want to watch. You can click away like that. if you pay for movie tickets, you're going to go and you're going to watch that entire movie no matter what. Which is why a movie theater is generally the best place to watch a movie. I love the movie theater. I am never distracted in a movie theater. I'm always fully engaged in the film, particularly at times where I sometimes forget that I'm in a movie theater. Like when I went to go see It Chapter 2, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. There's a part where like they go underwater, and I was with my girlfriend, and I was like, "Don't go underwater, you can't breathe!" And she like smacked me. She's like, "You're in a movie theater." I'm like, "Oh fuck, I forgot." Bad word, sorry. So I think that they should be more mindful with what they are filming for, because if they knew they were filming for Netflix, they probably would have made this shorter and more engaging. Because I had a hard time paying attention the whole time. I did pay attention the whole time because I'm dedicated to my YouTube channel, but about halfway through this movie, I was like, I really don't want to watch this anymore. I'd rather watch a different movie, which is interesting because a lot of Netflix originals are fantastic, and then some of them are just kind of meh. And this one was in the middle. I mean, it wasn't meh, but it wasn't fantastic, which is why I gave it B-. Well, thank you for watching. Make sure you join the Facebook group. Easy. Just go down there in the description, hit the link, and then hit join group, and it should automatically join you to the group. Because I believe I made that setting clear where anybody can just join, which is really cool. That is where you find the most up-to-date information on what is happening on the channel, and you can get links to the descriptions and all that stuff. It's really, really important that you join the group. Also, subscribe because it's going to help me out. The more you subscribe, the better I feel about making these videos for you guys. So make sure you subscribe and tell all your friends. Share everything that I put on Facebook. Share it to all your friends. Everyone should subscribe and get all the information that I'm trying to give out to you guys. Make sure you comment down below if there's something you want me to review. November should be a big review month for recommendations. So get those recommendations in the comments below. And I think that's all I have for you guys. So just keep remembering to watch more films. And I'll see you in the next